Hello friends, let me share my journey with you in a way that's both relatable and exciting. It's a story about my experience preparing for the Certified Kubernetes Administrator CKA exam and how it led to something amazing. Picture this, I was gearing up for the CKA exam, eager to conquer it. The only problem was I had no clue about the type of questions that would pop up in the test. To make the things challenging, there was hardly any content available on the YouTube back in those days that could guide me. Frustrating, right? So I made a bold decision. I decided to bridge this gap myself. I thought, why not create a course that provide questions similar to those asked in the CKA exam, along with the step-by-step lab sections to tackle them. The way aspiring CKA candidate could not only understand the problem but also learn how to solve them effortlessly. As time rolled on, something incredible happened. People from all corners of the world started appreciating my efforts. They began clearing the CKA certifications, all thanks to my CKA Challenge Question Lab course. You see, the CKA exam is not a walk in the park, and my course was not just about question. It was about boosting confidence. I didn't stop there, though I kept adding more and more questions to the course, and my YouTube subscriber grew up day by day. People were tagged me on the LinkedIn celebrating their certifications victory, over 1,000 of them. But here's the kicker. My reach was still somewhat limited. That's when I had a vision. I needed to take my missions to the next level. So I decided to transform my course into something bigger and better on Udemy. I put together a comprehensive CKA practice set course, and guess what? Friends from all over the world showed a keen interest and enrolled in the course. But wait, there's more. I wanted to make sure that everyone had access to these valuable resources. So I did something special. I distributed some of my courses for free and even hosted exciting giveaways. Of course, there were paid options too for those who want to dive deeper. In this video series, I cover a massive 17 challenging CKA exam questions. Each question is accompanied by a lab sections right next to it, and they come in varying difficulties level, all neatly packed into one video. It's a breeze to watch and prepare for the exam. Now here's the deal. If you appreciate my dedications and want to tackle more of these challenging questions, I invite you to enroll in my Udemy course. I am constantly adding fresh content there, so you will stay connected with me and continue to supercharge your CKA preparations. Join me on this journey and let's conquer the CKA exam together. Thank you. This is CKA challenge question 1. Weightage of this question is 4%. Create a new pod called admin pod with image VGBox. Allow the pod to be able to set the system time. The container should sleep for 3200 seconds. This question is related to the creations of new Kubernetes pod, which is a basic unit of deployment in Kubernetes, consisting of one or more containers that are deployed together on the same host. This task is to create a new pod called admin pod with the VGBox image. The VGBox image is a lightweight and popular base image that contains minimal Linux environment with essential tools and utilities. In addition, the pod should be configured to allow the container to set system time. This means that the container within the pod should have the necessary privilege to change the time on the host system. Finally, the container within the pod should sleep for 3200 seconds, which means that the container will start, sleep for the specified time, and then exit. This can be achieved using the sleep command, which is available in the BG box image. Take on the challenge of solving these questions on your own first, but if you encountered any difficulty in solving it, refer the next video for solution. Okay, so let's create a one pod with name admin pod. Kubectl run admin pod image. We are going to use BGBox. And the command is sleep for 3200 seconds. Let's generate the var definition file for this. Okay, so just copy till here and create one file for with name pod.yml. Okay. Now paste it all the contents here. Okay, so this thing we don't require, let's remove it. Okay, so in the questions there is one additional thing is required, that the container should sleep. We already added that, and the one other thing is that allow the pod to be able to set the system time. For this we need to refer the documentations, the Kubernetes documentations, and we need to add some capabilities. So this is the documentation page, capabilities for to just set for the system. Let's find it here, system sys time, this one. So copy these particular things and we can add it. We don't require the net admin, so we are going to remove it. Just we require system admin as per the questions. Okay, save it. And now kubectl apply -f, the name of the definition file, start with 1, apply it. Let's clear the screen. Kubectl get pod. So we have one pod with the name admin pod is currently running. Let's check the definition file. It's better to verify all the things after doing. Kubectl describe pod admin. So you can see that we added sleep is equal to 200 and it's running, and the image that we use the basic box. So all things looks good. So in the questions, the CKA exam questions, they are either ask you the same questions, or they will change the sleep timings, or they will ask you to create a pod, some other namespaces, some other clusters. So only these things they can change it. CK challenge questions 2. It is 5%. A kubeconfig file called test.kubeconfig file has been created in directory root/test. There is something wrong with the configuration file. You need to troubleshoot and fix it. This question is related to Kubernetes configuration and troubleshooting. A kubeconfig file is a configuration file used by the Kubernetes command line tool kubectl to communicate with the Kubernetes cluster. The task is to troubleshoot and fix an issue with the kubeconfig file named test.kubeconfig, which has been created in the directory /root/test. The questions does not specify the specific issue with the configuration, so the candidate would need to examine the contents of the Kubernetes kubeconfig file to identify the problem. To troubleshoot the issues, the candidate may need to check if the necessary informations as the cluster endpoint, authentication detail, and context are correctly specified in the kubeconfig file. They may also check if the credentials provided in the configurations are valid and up to date. Once the issue has been identified, the candidate would need to fix it and ensure that the kubeconfig file is valid and can be used to communicate with the Kubernetes cluster. The solution could involve modifying the config file to correct any error, updating authentications details, or specify a different context depending on the specific issue. Please refer the next video for solution.
Okay, in this question we have to validate the kubeconfig file. The name of the file is test, that is placed under the test folder, and there is something wrong with the configuration. So as per this, this is the kubeconfig file. You can see the dummy file, but we have to look into it, and if there is any problem, we have to fix it. Definitely the file have some problem. So let's have a look. Cd test. Okay, so we identified the file. Let's cat that file. So it's look like the kubeconfig file as we mentioned. So the version is correct, the cluster, the certificate, because this don't have the problem. You have to think about in different way. There really no problem with the certificates, because you can't do anything with that. The name is fine. The context is defined for the cluster, and the user is also defined. So the only point is to check regarding the server URL. So this is the APIs. We have to match it with our current. So how to do that? kubectl config view. This is the current config file, and here you have the port 6443. What is the port ever? Okay, there is a problem with the port, so let's use the Vim editor to modify it. Test, and we have to use 6443. That is the port used for the kube APIs. 6443, and let's save it. Clear the screen. Once you save it, let's browse it to check that the changes reflecting or not. So 6443, and this is the also we have in the current the config file as we are using config view 6443. So that's it.
CKA challenge question 3, having the weightage of 5%. Create a new deployment called web project 268 with the image Nginx. You have to use the tag 1.16 and one replica. Next, upgrade the deployment to the version 1.17 using the rolling update. Make sure that the version upgrade is recorded in the resource annotations. This question is related to the process of deploying and updating a containerized applications in the Kubernetes cluster. Specifically, it asks you to perform the following tasks. Create a new deployment using the name web project 268. The deployment should use the container image Nginx with the tag 1.16 and have only one replica. A deployment is a Kubernetes resource that manages the set of identical pod and ensure that the desired number of replica is always running. Upgrade the deployment to version 1.17 using a rolling update. A rolling update is the deployment strategy that replaces the old replicas with the new one gradually, means one by one, to ensure that the application remains available and responsive throughout the update process. Record the version upgrade in the resource annotations And annotations is a key value pair that can be attached to the Kubernetes resources to provide additional metadata. In this case, you should add an annotations to the deployment resource to indicate that it has been upgraded to version 1.17. In summary, the questions requires you to create a new deployment, upgrade it to new version, and annotate it to the record upgrade. This types of task is commonly performed by DevOps engineer and Kubernetes administrator to manage the deployment of containerized applications in a scalable and reliable manner. Take on the challenge of solving these questions on your own first, but if you encountered any difficulty in solving it, refer the next video for solution. Best luck!
Okay, now we have to create one deployment. The name of the deployment is Web Project 268. So let's create it. kubectl create deployment. The name of the deployment is Web Project, and the number of the project is 268. Okay, the image that we are going to use, as per the questions, we have to use Nginx, and the tag is 1.16, and it's asking to create a one replica. By default, the one replica will be created if we not define anything, so it's not required. And the strategy for this deployment by default is rolling update, so there is no need to define anything, just create the deployment. Okay, so one deployment is created. kubectl get deployment. So one deployment is created, and it's creating one pod for this. Let's monitor that as well. Pod. So we have one pod currently running. Now we have to set our image. There is two ways we can define, but we have to record the version. We record the version informations as well. So better to create with the imperative way. So let's check the container. What is current deployment is using. kubectl describe the name of the deployment is web. So you can see that the container it's using is Nginx. Okay, so let's clear the screen first. kubectl set image deployment, and the name of the deployment is web project. The number of the project is 268. Okay, and the container name is Nginx. Okay, and we are going to set the image as per the questions. The version is 1.17. And we have to record. This is the very important. So you can see that the image is updated. Let's verify it. kubectl describe deployment. Name of the deployment is grep deployment, and grep for the image. So you can see that our image is set with the new one 1.17. Now check the history. kubectl rollout history for the deployment, and the name of the deployment is. So here you can see that we have recorded all the informations, and this is the requirement of the questions, so that it's saying that make sure that the version upgrade is recorded in the resource annotations. So it's already recorded the informations that under the revision number 2 what we did. So which it's clear that we are changing the image. The previous one is we have 1.16 and current is 1.17.
CKA challenge question 4 having the weightage of 7%. Create a new deployment called Web003. Scale the deployment to 3 replica. Make sure desired number of pod always running. The task required you to create a new deployment called Web003 and scale it to 3 replica. A Kubernetes deployment is a resource object that defines how many instances of a containerized application should be created and maintained by the Kubernetes system. When you create a deployment, Kubernetes create a set of identical pod replica which are instances of application running in a container. Scaling a deployment to 3 replica means that the Kubernetes will ensure that there are always 3 identical pods running at a given time. If a pod fails or is terminated, Kubernetes will automatically create a new replica to ensure that the desired number of replica is maintained. To complete the task, you need to use the Kubernetes command line interface kubectl or Kubernetes API to create a new deployment called Web003 and specify the desired number of replica as 3. Once the deployment is created, Kubernetes will ensure that 3 replica are always running and will automatically create or delete replica as needed to maintain the desired state. The main thing is that why the weightage of this question is 7%. There might be difficulties. To understand this, please refer the next video for solutions. So you can take up the challenge of solving these questions on your own. But if you encountered any difficulty in solving it, refer the next video for solutions. Good luck.
Okay, as per the questions, we have to create a deployment. So let's create it. So ctl create deployment. The name of the deployment is Web003, and we have to use the image as per the question. We can use any image as we require. This is not mentioned in the question, so let's take it as a Nginx replica as per the question is 3. So we created a deployment with 3 replica. Let's wait for a few more minutes. The current available pod is 0. So out of the 3 pods, none of the pod is available. So we have to think about that which master component is responsible to managing the replications related things. It's a controller manager which handle to manage all the pods, and whenever the pods get down, it's create another pod, and the pod that is related with the master cluster component exists in the kube system namespace. So let's monitor the kube ctl and kube system namespace get pod. So you can see that the kube controller manager control component, it's not working properly. So we have to find the reason behind it, how to find why it's not working, because this is the component which bringing the pods and managing the pods, the desired pods as per the replica we provided. kubectl kube system logs for kube controller. I'm checking the logs of the kube controller. We don't have any informations. Okay, so let's describe it. kubectl. Just first use the namespace. Cube system describe pod cube controller. So it looks that we have some problem and we need to identify what is that problem. It looks to me that the cube controller, it's the word is not perfect. It should be manager here. Cube controller manager. So let's clear the screen. We know that this all things managed by the static pod. So and we know the locations where it's kept. So if we don't know the locations, we can identify that as well. But let's check in the etcd Kubernetes manifest file first. Kubernetes manifest. Okay, so all the static pod have the configurations file in this location. So let's look into the cube controller. We have to look for the word MAM. Okay, it's in the beginning. So you can see that there is some mistake that occurs here. So we need to modify that particular thing, manager. So that's it. I think it will work now. kubectl get deployment. It's look like the pod is not bringing up. Okay, let's watch it. kubectl get deployment. So let's wait for a few more seconds and probably it will be working fine. The problem we had seen is already fixed, so I think it will work. Okay, now you can see that the pod getting created. Okay, let's press Control C, come out from the watch, kubectl get pod. So you have all the pods running. kubectl get deployment. So the deployment is working fine. So whenever if you see a simple question in the exam, so that you have a clear understanding, okay, this one is simple, just look into the weightage as well. If the question have the high weightage, means that there is some problem. So you have to be very careful in the exam. You have to monitor it. It's not that you create a deployment and just jump into the next question. You have to review either the pod gets created or not. So because this is the high weightage questions, and you have to put some time on this to just make sure that whatever you did is correct.
CKA challenge question 5. Having the weightage of 11%. Upgrade the cluster, master and the worker node from 1.18 to 1.19. Make sure to first drain the both node and make it available after upgrade. This question is related to upgrading a Kubernetes cluster which consists of master node and one or more worker nodes from version 1.18 to version 1.19. Upgrading a Kubernetes cluster involves upgrading both the master node and the worker node. The master node is responsible for managing the overall state of the cluster, while the worker node runs the containerized applications. Before upgrading the cluster, it is necessary to drain both the master node and the worker node. Draining a node means that the node is marked as unschedulable and all running pods are evicted from the node before any upgrade are performed. This ensures that the workloads running on the node are not disrupted during the upgrade process. Once the upgrade is complete, the nodes are made available again and the Kubernetes will automatically reschedule the pods on the upgraded nodes. To upgrade the Kubernetes cluster, you would first need to check if there are any compatibility issue between the current version of the Kubernetes running on the cluster and the version to which you want to upgrade. Once you confirm compatibility, you can then use the Kubernetes command line interface kubectl to initiate the upgrade process. The upgrade process typically involves upgrading the Kubernetes component on the master node first, followed by the worker node. You would need to ensure that the upgrade is performed in a safe and controlled manner with appropriate backups and rollback plan in place in case of any issue. After upgrading the nodes, you would need to uncordon them, which means making them available for scheduling pods again. Kubernetes will then automatically reschedule the pods on the upgraded node, ensuring that the workloads are running on the latest version of the Kubernetes. Take on the challenge of solving these questions on your own first, but if you encountered any difficulty in solving it, refer the next video for solution. Good luck.
Okay, then the main agenda for today's lab session is to upgrade the master node and the worker node from 1.18 to 1.19 version. So before doing that, let's monitor the environment first. kubectl get node. So you can see that the master and the worker node both have the version of 1.18. So let's drain the master node first. kubectl drain control plane, and we need to pass one more command to ignore daemon set. Okay, let's start draining the master node. So it's evicting all the pods. So if you look into the same command again, kubectl get node, so you can see that the scheduling is not disabled for the master node. And if you see the kubectl get pod, how many pods we have, so you find all the pods in the node one. Not you will not find any pod for that is running. So we have only one pod that is running. And for this, if you want go for the wide options, you can find it in this is currently deployed on node 01. So let's start the upgrade process. So first apt update. Okay, so now install apt install kubeadm, and the version is 1.19.0-0. Okay, this is the version we have to upgrade. Say why, yes, go for it. So kubeadm is now upgraded. So you can check the version also, and the version is also already provided here that it's upgraded to 1.19. Now kubeadm apply upgrade apply, apply to version 1.19. 19.0. Sorry, apply a spelling mistake. So it will take a little time, 1 to 2 minutes, for this to just pull all the images for this deployment. So we have to wait till it get executed. Perfect. So you have the message that your cluster was now upgraded to 1.19. Now our main task is to upgrade install the latest one for the kubelet as well. Apt install kubelet 1.19.0. Okay, restart the kubelet system. CTL restart kubelet. Okay, it's restarted. Now check the just clear the screen first. Kubectl get node. So you find that the master node now upgraded to 1.19. Now uncordon it, so it will be ready for work. Kubectl uncordon control plane component. Okay, kubectl get node. So now it's ready for any kind of deployment into the master. Now it's time for the node one. Kubectl drain node 01. Ignore dimensions. So now it's ejecting all the ports whichever we have in the deployed on the node 1 to the control plane component. kubectl get port O of wide. So you find that the same port which is previously running on the node 01, it's now running on the control plane node. So we moved it because we have to manage the cluster. We have to upgrade the worker node. So it's now drained. So kubectl, you can check it. Kubectl get node. Now it's not ready for work. For node 1 is now in the draining position. Scheduling is disabled. Now SSH into the node 1 because we need to upgrade the cluster worker node. Apt update apt install kubeatm kubeatm is equal to 1.19. This is the version for which we are going to update. Yes. Okay, now clear the screen. kubeatm upgrade node. Okay, now the node has been upgraded with the kubeatm apt For the kubelet, we need to install the latest one. apt install kubelet is equal to what is the version 1.19.0 /0. Okay, now restart the kubelet, same as we did for previously for the master. System ctl restart kubelet. Okay, so now currently we are in the node 1 worker node. So we have to come back, press Ctrl D to come out from the worker node. Kubectl get node. Okay, so you can find that both the master and the worker node have the version of 1.19, but one thing is left, that we need to uncoordinate the node 1 because it's not ready yet for any kind of deployment. For this, kubectl uncoordinate node 01. Okay, now check the status again for the node. Okay, so the control plane component, the master cluster and the worker node both are now have the version of 1.19. So now the upgrade is finished.
CKA challenge question 6. This question have the weightage of 4%. Deploy a web load 5461 pod using the Nginx tag 1.17 image with the label set to tier is equal to web. This question is related to deploying a pod in the Kubernetes. A pod is the smallest deployable unit in Kubernetes and represent a single instance of containerized application. The task required you to deploy a pod called webload5461 using the Nginx tag 1.17 container image and set the label to tier is equal to web. To complete the task, you would need to use the Kubernetes command line interface, kubectl or Kubernetes API to create a YAML file that describes the pod configurations. The YAML file would include the container image, label, and any other necessary configuration setting for the pod. The pod will schedule onto a worker node in the cluster, and Kubernetes will ensure that the pod is running and available according to the desired state specified in the YAML file. Take on the challenge of solving these questions on your own first, but if you encounter any difficulty in solving it, refer the next video for solutions. Good luck.
And the very easiest one with the low weightage, so we have to create a pod. Let's create it. kubectl run. The name of the pod should be web. Load, and the number is 5461. Okay, this is the name of the pod. We have to use the image for it. Nginx, the tag is 1.7. Okay. We have to put the label as well. So we are using the imperative way to do it in a faster way, because in the exam there is time constraint and we have to do it in a fastest way. So now the replicas, not labels. The label that is asked is tier web. So pod is gets created. Let's hide kubectl. Okay, pod. So one pod is currently running in the environment. kubectl get pod, check for the label. So labels. So okay, the one pod is getting created, which is running, having one container, and the label is perfectly fine. So this This have the lowest, you can say, the weightage, and in the similar way they can ask you to do this stuff in a particular cluster in a particular using the particular namespace. So that's it. So questions having the 4 percentage of weightage, having you have to do the similar kinds of stuff. Either you have to create a secrets using the pods, either you have to create a config map using the pods. So 4% have questions having the 4% of weightage have the similar types of questions.
CKA challenge question 7. This question have the weightage of 7%. A pod called MyEngineX pod using the image EngineX in custom namespace is not running. Find the problem and fix it and make it running. All the supporting definitions file has been placed at root. This question is about troubleshooting and fixing an issue related to a Kubernetes pod named MyEngineX pod running the Nginx image. The pod is supposed to run in a custom namespace. However, it is currently not running, and the task is to identify the root cause of the problem and fix it to ensure that the pod is up and running. The questions also mention that all the necessary definitions file required to solve the problem has been placed at the root directory. This means that you have the access to all the necessary configuration files to fix the issue. To summarize, the problem is to identify why the Nginx pod not running in a custom namespace. Use the provided definitions file to fix the issue and make sure that the pod is running correctly. Take on the challenge of solving this question on your own first, but if you encountered any difficulty in solving it, refer the next video for solutions. Good luck. Okay, so as per the questions, we have to look into the custom namespace for a pod, MyEngineX pod, which as per the question is not running. Either it's in the error state or in the pending state. So I have to look into that particular pod. So kubectl, I will use the custom namespace. Okay, and the get pod. So it will list all the pod in the custom namespace. So it's in the pending state. So the pod name is my Nginx pod as per the questions, and which is in the pending state. So first thing, we need to understand why this in the pending state. For this we need to describe the pod. So whenever there is any questions that is related with the pod is in the error or in the pending state, you need to first describe the pod. From here you need to start the investigation. You don't need to jump onto the kubectl to just understand why the pod is not working. Maybe the kubectl is working fine and some problem with the pod. So you have to first describe the pod. So I am going to describe the pod. Kubectl describe pod, the name of the pod. Okay, let me give the namespace first, custom. Okay, and then describe pod, my Nginx pod. Okay, and if you look into this particular pod, you can find that there is a persistence volume is also used in the pod, persistence volume claim. This is fine. And if you look into the warning, the fail scheduling, why the kubectl is not able to make it running this particular pod, you will find that 0 1 means there is a one persistence volume persistence claim, and it's as a 0 there is assignment of 0 nodes are available. So out of there is one nodes and there is 0 nodes available for this particular pod, and the reason is that one persistence volume claim pv claim log is not found. So it looks that either the pvc is not created and it's assigned to that particular pod, or maybe there is some different problem. So we need to first check the pv and the pvc. Also in the questions that it's mentioned and then all the definitions file we keep on the root folder. So we will try to browse that particular things also. So let's clear the screen first. Let's So here you will find that we have the pod.yaml, pv.yaml, and the pvc.yaml. So I think that there is a pvc already exist in the, but there is some problem with the pvc. That's why the pod is not able to utilize that particular pvc, and it's not in the running state. So let me check kubectl get pv. So if you look into that particular thing, the status is bound. Okay, so things looks like that the pv is bounded with the pvc. But when you look into the claim, the pvc is already created, but it's created in the default namespace. So as I already mentioned in my previous videos for the sessions in which we are dealing with the persistence volume and claim, if you didn't have a look on that particular videos, you can go for the better understanding, in which we discussed that the persistence volume claim is namespace thing. So PVC and pod should be exist in the same namespace, and this as per the this description, it looks like the PVC that is created in the default namespace. So this is the problem, I think, with this particular the pod is not in the running state. And what we are going to use, we are going to delete this particular PVC, and we will going to use going to modify that definitions file to use that particular namespace, the custom one, in which we have the already the pod running. So before doing anything, let's check the PVC as well. Get PVC, and it's also bounded, but it's in the default namespace because we are not passing the namespace things, and it's coming from the default, and the PVC is in the. And let me check kubectl in the custom namespace. Do we have any PVC or not? Custom get PVC. No, we don't have any name is PVC in the custom namespace. So we have to bring that particular PVC in the custom namespace. So for this, we are going to modify the definitions file. Before that, we need to delete this particular PVC. Kubectl get okay, delete PVC. The name of the PVC is PV claim. Okay, we deleted it because we already have the definitions file. We don't need to bother about that. Definitions file is already in place. And let's see the status of PV. kubectl get PV. So you can see that previously the PV is bounded, and now it's released. It's not available. So we need to destroy the PV also, because we are going to create PV again and then PVC in the custom namespace to make the things work. So we are going to delete it as well. kubectl delete PV. The name of the PV is my PV log. Okay, so it's also get deleted. Now we have to modify the PVC. So we are going to edit it, pvc.yaml, and here we have to go into the insert mode, and here we have to use our the namespace related thing. So namespace custom, because we have to you create a PVC in the custom namespace, not the default namespace, because our pod is running in the custom namespace. So let's save it. Okay, let's look into the PV also. pv.yaml. So PV is fine because it's not namespace related namespace, because it's always been the part of the default. So there is no problem with the PV. All things looks good. Let's clear the screen. kubectl apply pv.yaml. Okay, PV is created. Let monitor that. kubectl get PV. It's created in the default namespace, and its status is available. So we need to bound it. So we are going to apply the PVC definitions file, PVC. Okay, kubectl get PVC, but it will not get any give you any result because we created in the default in the custom namespace. So you can see that there is a bonding between the there is already a bound status set for the PVC, and if you check for the PV again, kubectl get PV, so it's also bonded, and the claim is from the custom, not from the default. So in this way you understand that what is the problem. So these types of questions is very simple, and they will ask you in the similar way in the CKA exam, and you should understand these particular scenarios, and they will not make it difficult. The things will be very simple, that it's not utilizing, or there is the PVC is all not created in any namespace, so you have to create it. So these types of things they will ask you in the question. Let's see the status of the pod, kubectl custom get pod. So it's in the running state. So identified the problem, we fixed the problem, and now the pod is automatically in the running state, because the PVC is now in the custom namespace where we have the pod already. We previously in the pending, now it's in the running state. So this completes this particular lab. CK challenge question 8. This question have the weightage of 4%. Create a multi-container pod named multipod in the development namespace using images, nginx and redis. This question is asking you to create a multi-container pod named multipod in Kubernetes cluster development namespace. The pod should consist of two containers that run images for the popular web server Nginx and a popular in-memory data structure store Redis. A multi-container pod is a Kubernetes object that allows you to group multiple containers into a single logical unit that share the same resources, such as networking and storage volume. In this case, the pod will contain two containers, and both containers will run in the same pod. The Nginx container will run the Nginx web server image, which is widely used for serving static files, reverse proxy, and load balancing. The Redis container will run the Redis image, which is commonly used as a caching layer and message broker. The namespace development is a logical grouping of the Kubernetes objects that help to organize the resources in the cluster. It allows multiple teams to work on different projects simultaneously without interfering with each other resources. To summarize, the question is asking you to create multi-container pod named multipod with two containers running Nginx and Redis image in the Kubernetes cluster development namespaces. Take on the challenge of solving the questions on your own first, but if you encountered any difficulty in solving it, refer the next video for solutions. Good luck. Okay, so for this question, we have to create a multi-container pod. Name is multipod in the development namespace. So first thing we need to check that either the development namespace exists or not. So kubectl get ns. Ns is for namespace, and we don't have the development, so we will create a one. Kubectl create ns. Okay, so we have the development namespace created. Let's clear the screen first. Now we need to create a definitions file for the multi-container pod that will have the container one from you using the Nginx and another using the Redis. So for that we will generate the definition file and we will use it accordingly. So kubectl run the name of the pod multi
pod. The image we will define for first one. Image is equal to nginx, and we will use the dry run is equal to client, and we will output of YAML. So this will give the definitions file. I copy from this locations till this locations. Copy it. Let's clear the screen. Okay, so now I am going to create a file called multipod.yaml. Okay, here we are going to paste it, and the things which is not required just going to remove to have a clear visibility. Okay, we don't require label because nothing in the questions as such. And the container name I'm also going to change it to the same as we have for the image, because we can't use the same image for the both container. The name of the container engine X. Okay, and we're going to copy from here, copy it. I'm going to paste it here. Okay, now for the image we are going to use Redis, and the same as the name of the image we are going to use Redis as well. So all things looks good, but one thing is left, that we need to create this multi-pod into the development namespace as per the question. So here we will put a namespace called development. Okay, that's it. This is the simplest question, and we are going to save it and going to apply it. Qctl apply -f, and here we are going to provide the definition file for the multipod, and it's created. It will take some time. We have to monitor it. Kubectl get pod, but not in the default namespace. We have to use the development environment for this. Okay, so it's currently in the creating state. We will have to wait for some time, because we can't jump into the other questions till we find it as running, or maybe there is some problem, then we have to fix it accordingly. So wait for some time. Okay, so now it's in the running state. So we created a multi-container pod, and we will try to describe it as well to check all things are in the proper place or not. Qctl, the namespace, development, describe pod. The name of the pod is multi-pod, and here you can see that there will be two containers. The one container is of name nginx, and the other is of Redis, using the Redis image, and the other one is the nginx image. So perfect, fine. All the things is working accordingly. Let's clear the screen. So we complete this particular lab. Now jumping to the other question.
CKA challenge question 9. This question have the weightage of 7%. A pod named nginx pod image nginx in the default namespace is not running. Find the problem and fix it and make it running. This question is related to Kubernetes pod management and troubleshooting. Specifically, it asks you to identify and fix an issue with a pod named nginx pod that is supposed to be running the nginx image. The pod is expected to be in the default namespace, which is built in Kubernetes namespace that contain resources created without a namespace specification. However, the pod is currently not running. which means there is an issue that need to be resolved. The task is to identify the root cause of the problem and take the necessary step to fix it so that the pod can start running again. The questions does not provide any additional information about the problem, which means that you will have to investigate the issue yourself. This could involve checking the pod status, log, event, and other relevant information to determine what might be causing the problem. Once you identified the issues, you will need to take the necessary corrective actions to fix the problem and make sure that the pod is running as expected. To summarize, the question is asking you to troubleshoot and fix an issues with the pod name Nginx, running the Nginx image in the default namespace, and ensure that the pod is running correctly. Take on the challenge of solving these questions on your own first, but if you encountered any difficulty in solving it, refer the next video for solutions. Good luck.
So in this particular questions, there is a pod called Nginx pod using the image Nginx is not running in the default namespace. So we have to find the problem and fix it and make it running. So let's see either the pod exists or maybe first we have to check it. Kubectl get pod. So okay, we have the pod called Nginx pod, which is currently in the pending, not in the error state. So the descriptions of this particular pod, if we check at that, that will be very helpful because it's in the pending or in the error. First point of investigation is to describe this particular pod to find the reason. So we are going to do the same. kubectl describe pod. Name of the pod is Nginx pod. Okay, so in this is the warning, and the kubectl have the message like field scheduling, default scheduler applied, and there is two node in the, and out of it none of the node is available. One node has taint color blue and other pod didn't tolerate. Okay, one node had taint, so both of the taint both of the pod have taint applied, and maybe this is something related with the tolerations because maybe this particular pod don't have the tolerations for any of the node. That's why it's currently in the pending and waiting for the deployment. So if we apply the tolerations for this particular pod, then might be it will be in the running state. So let's clear the screen first. So first we will verify how many nodes we have. So as per the error, we have two nodes. So okay, we have two node, and we have to verify that okay, what is the taint applied means as per the error, both of the node have the taint. So kubectl describe node control plane, and we are going to grep for taint. Okay, this have the taint applied, and what about the node 1? This also have the taint applied, but we will not going to deploy anything on the master. This is not a good practice. So we will make the tolerations and make it compatible, this particular pod, to get deploy on the this particular node 01. So we are going to apply the tolerations, but we don't have the definitions file as per the questions. And let me check if we have anything there, but it's not there. And in the question also it's not mentioned that we have the definitions file in the root or some other places. So we will need to copy the structure or the definitions from the running node. So kubectl get pod. Okay, so we will going to copy these particular things in a file called pod.xml, something like that, and we will remove the things accordingly. But as per the questions, there is only two things that is used, which is the nginx, the name of the pod is the nginx and the image is nginx. So we can create our own definitions file also. But it's not good practice because maybe there is some other configurations also in the pod. So we have to capture the running pod configurations, and we will then look into what things we can remove and what things we can keep. We can manage the things accordingly. So kubectl get pod, the name of the pod is nginx, output of YAML into a file called pod.yaml. So we will keep all the things in the pod.yaml, all the definitions file for the particular pod, which is currently in the pending state. Let's check either it's created or not. Let's clear the screen. Uh, let's look into the definitions file also. vi pod.yaml, and it's have lots of information, so we need to remove all the things which is not required, and then we will going to go to delete that particular pod. So I'm going to remove one line, one by one. Okay, so creating time instant, we don't require label, we will keep. We will not require these all things, so we are going to remove it. It's in the default namespace, so namespace is also not there, I think. API version, these all things are not required. Let's remove 10 line. Let's remove 10 more line. Okay, remove it. Name of the pod is required. The default namespace is not required because it will create by default in the default namespace. These all things will not required. Image not required. And all the remaining things I think we don't require. So we're removing all the things, whatever it is. Okay. So now we need to apply the tolerations part, and for this we are going to refer the documentations, and as per the documentation, this is the line which we have to keep, copy, and we are going to use it. Is it here? Container, just paste it and make it a line also, because otherwise it will complain. Let's move it to a space, to a space. Okay, now schedule is perfectly fine. Equal operator is also fine. The key, we have the color. COLOR. Okay, this is the key, and the value is blue because we are going to apply this particular pod in the node 1. So we have to meet the tolerations with the tent. Okay, all things looks good. Now we are going to save it. Okay, and now we have to remove delete that particular pod which is currently in the pending state. ctl get pod. So this is the pod in the pending state. Qctl delete pod nginx pod. It will get deleted because it's in the pending state, it's not running, that's why it not take time. Now I'm going to apply qctl apply pod.yaml, and hope this time the pod will be in the running state. So let's monitor it. Kubectl pod, it's in the current container creating state. So we will wait for some seconds, and probably it will be in the running state. Okay, so now it's in the running state because it's meet the taint that we applied. We applied the tolerations things, which is compatible with the node one, and we will monitor this as well. And let's clear the screen. So we will monitor it on which node it's get deployed. QCTL get pod of wide. This will give you more option, and here you can find that the nginx pod it's in the running state. This is the IP, and it's using the node 01 for the deployment, so it's running on the node 01 worker node. So in this way we complete this particular lab as well.
CK challenge question 10. This question have the weightage of 5%. Create a new deployment called nginx deploy with image nginx using the tag 1.16 and 8 replica. There are 5 worker node in cluster. Make sure no pod will get deployed on 2 worker node mentioned below, worker node 1 and worker node 2. Revert any changes that you did in the cluster to make it possible. This question is related to Kubernetes deployment. Kubernetes deployment is a declarative configurations for running and scaling containerized application. The task is to create a new deployment called nginx deploy with the container image nginx using the tag 1.16. This deployment should have 8 replicas. However, there are 5 worker nodes in the cluster, and 2 of these worker node 1 and worker node 2, should not receive any pod from this deployment. Therefore, the deployment needs to be created in a way that ensures that the pods are distributed across the remaining 3 worker nodes. Lastly, it is mentioned that any changes made to the cluster during this task should be reverted. This means that the cluster should be restored to its original state once the task is completed. Take on the challenge of solving this question on your own first, but if you encountered any difficulty in solving it, refer the next video for solution. Good luck. So in this particular challenge questions, we have to create a deployment with the name nginx deploy with the image and 8 replica, but there is some problem that we don't need to deploy the pod into the worker node 1 and worker node 2. So this can be achieved in a different way. What we are going to perform, we are going to perform that we will call down that particular nodes, node 1 and node 2. So first verify this. You see here, get node, how many nodes we have available. Okay, this is the 5 node cluster as per the question. Okay, so now we are going to cordon the node 1 and node 2. Okay, so this is the temporary, but if you want to get permanent solutions, then you can apply a taint on the node. Okay, but this is for the exam perspective, CK exam perspective, and marking the node as a cordon will be a very easy and faster way. Okay, you see here, cordon worker node 1, you see here, cordon worker node 2 as well, as per the question. You see here. So you can see that the status is ready, but the scheduling is disabled. So there is no chance that the pod will get deployed into the worker node 1 and worker node. Now we are ready to do a deployment with whatever suggested in the question. So you can use the imperative way also, and the declarative. It's depend upon the you. If you are preparing for the CK exam, and this is the question in the exam, then you should have to be familiar with the imperative command. That is the faster approach. But in the organizations in which you are working, always use declarative. Imperative way is not a good approach. Okay, so I am using the imperative way, and also suggesting you how you can use the declarative way as well. QCTL create deployment
What is the name of the deployment? Is Nginx. It's Nginx deploy. Okay, what is the name of the image? It is Nginx tag is 1.16. It's have the replica of it. Okay, so this is the thing that you have to create a deployment. The name of the deployment is Nginx deploy. Image that you are going to use is 1.16, and you have to create the 8 replica. Let me copy this so that we can use it further. If you want to create use it through the declarative way, then you have to put here the try client, try run is equal to client, and for output of element, put the replicas. Okay, so this will give you the specifications file. You can copy till here. Okay, and create a YAML file and do a deployment. But I'm using the imperative way, and which is good for the exam as well. So I'm pasting the complete command. Okay, so I think I did some mistake. No issues. I copy it again so that I don't have to write it all the command again. Let me write it here till here. Copy, and then I'm going to paste it here. So this is the imperative way, kubectl create deployment. Name of the deployment, the image that we are going to use is 1.16, the replica is 8. Sorry, again the same mistake we have seen here, the word replicas. Okay, so it will create a deployment. Now I'm going to check it, get deployment. So you can see that currently none of the deployment is ready. Okay, let me put watch. So you can see that the code of now the 8 out of 8 is ready. Let me connect this to serial get pod. Okay, so all the pod is currently running 8 by 8. Okay, now I'm going to check it using the wide options. So you can see that none of the pod get deployed into worker node 1 and worker node 2. So it looks fine as per the question. And the question is also asking to revert any changes that I did in the cluster. So now I'm going to uncorden it to ctl uncorden worker node 1 and ctl uncorden worker node 2 ctl get no. Okay, so you can see that the worker node 1 and worker node 2 is now in the ready state. So you can schedule any pod. So I reverted my changes, but currently all the pod is deployed into all the worker node except 1 and 2. Okay, so this fulfill this question.
CK challenge question 11. This question have the weightage of 5%. Create a replica set, name, web pod, image that we have to use of Nginx, tag is 1.16, replica count is 3. There already a pod running in the cluster as well. Please make sure that total count of pod running into a cluster is not more than 3 for a particular namespace. This question is related to managing containerized application using Kubernetes. a popular container orchestration tool. Specifically, it is asking you to create a replica set object in Kubernetes with certain specification. A replica set is a Kubernetes object that ensure a specified number of identical pods are running at all the times. In this case, you are being asked to create a replica set with the name webpod and image of Nginx 1.16. The replica set should have 3 replica, which means that 3 identical pods running the Nginx 1.16 image will be created and managed by the replica set. However, the question also has the requirement that the total count of pods running in the cluster should not be more than 3. This means that if there are already a pod in the cluster before you create the replica set, you must ensure that the total number of pods running in the cluster, including the one created by the replica set, does not exceed the 3. Overall, this question is testing your knowledge and ability to create and manage the Kubernetes object, specifically replica set, and your understanding of resource management in the Kubernetes cluster. Take on the challenge of solving these questions on your own first, but if you encountered any difficulty in solving it, refer the next video for the solutions. Good luck.
Okay, so in this question we have to create a replica set. The name of the replica set is webpod, and the image that we have to use is the Nginx. Tag is 1.16 and the replica is 3. But there, as per the question, there is already a pod running in the cluster, so we need to verify it first. QCTL get pod. Okay, so one pod is already running, and we have to create a replica set for the and the 3 replicas we have to create. But as per the questions, finally the total count of the pod will be in the cluster is only 3, not more than that. So we have to you know that the replica sets have the matching selecting criteria as per the labels. As per the label, replica set identified which particular pod is associated with the which replica sets. Okay, so we have to either we changed this particular demo pod as per the replica set, or we will build a replica set as per this demo pod using the label. So better we will create a replica set by looking into the labels that is already defined for the demo pod. So for this, kubectl get pod, so labels. So you can see that we have to create a replica set with app is equal to web. Okay, so when we create a replica set with the 3 replica using this label, this particular pod will be managed by the replica set only. Okay, so in that case, the replica set, we create a replica set for the 3 replicas, but finally replica set will create only 2 replica, and this one it includes into that particular replica set. So all the 3 pods, 2 that is created by the replica set and 1 this is already exist will be the part of the replica set. So finally we have 3. Let's see how we can do it. So I created one file here. This is the rs file. So you can see that this is the replica sets. You already familiar with all these things, the API version kind, and here you can see that I'm using the replica set my rs. Okay, so this is the replica set. For this we can change it to the as per the questions, that is the web pod. Okay, so we modified it, but for the labels this doesn't make any sense. This is the label for the replica set, but these two, one is the matching label and other one is the pod that is the part of that particular replica set. This both should match always. Okay, and why we assign this label web is equal to app is equal to web, because we have already a pod which have the app is equal to web. So when we create a replica set, this particular pod which is currently standalone will be the part of the replica set. Okay, so now I'm going to deploy it. kubectl apply -app rs. Okay, so replica set get created. kubectl get rs. This is the short code of the replica sets. Okay, there might be some problem with the cluster. So previously we didn't get any output, and currently we are getting desired is 3. Okay, because we defined the 3 replica set here. Okay, so by this particular manifest file, 3 pods will be the part of this particular replica sets. Okay, so now I am going to see how much pod it gets created. You sit here, get pod. So you can see that this 2 pod gets created by the replica sets, and this one is also now is the part of the replica sets. If I remove this one, okay, then it will automatically, replica set will automatically create a 1 pod, or either any of the pod I will remove it from the this environment, it automatically replica set will create. So all the 3 pods will be now the part of the replica sets and managed by the same replica sets. Okay, because we handle it through the labels, and only this way the replica set identify its own pod. Okay, so I think we successfully completed this lab, and now we don't have to do any changes. We need to just come back from that particular cluster to look into the other questions.
CK challenge question 12. This question have the weightage of 5%. There are 3 nodes in the cluster. Create daemon set, name mypod, image nginx on each node except one node, worker node 3. This question is related to managing containerized application using Kubernetes, a popular container orchestration tool. Specifically, it is asking you to create a daemon set object in Kubernetes with certain specification. A daemon set is a Kubernetes object that ensures that a copy of pod is running on every node in a cluster. In this case, you are being asked to create a daemon set with the name mypod and image nginx on all the node except one specific node, that is worker node 3. The cluster in this question consists of 3 worker node 1, 2 and 3 respectively. Your task is to create the daemon set that deploy a pod with an nginx image on each of the first 2 nodes but not on the third node. This means that 2 replica of the pod will be created, one on each first 2 node, and no replica will be created on the third node. To accomplish this task, you will need to create a Kubernetes manifest file that defines the daemon set object with the given specifications. You will also need to ensure that the manifest file specifies the appropriate selector and node selector to target only the first 2 nodes and exclude the third one. Overall, this question is testing your knowledge and ability to create and manage Kubernetes object, specifically daemon set, and your understanding of node selections in the Kubernetes cluster. Take on the challenge of solving this question on your own first, but if you encountered any difficulty in solving it, refer the next video for solutions. Good luck.
There is 3 nodes. Let's verify it. QCTL. So we have 3 worker node available here. We have to create a daemon set. Okay, the name of the daemon set is mypod, and the image that we have to use is of nginx. The daemon set have the functionality that it will create a single pod in each of the node, but as per the questions we have to restrict it for a particular worker node 3. Okay, so in that case we will apply a chain. Only this we have comes in the mind when we are creating, we are restricting a particular pod to be get deployed into a particular node. So we will going to apply a chain, and then we will create a daemon set, and then we are going to deploy a daemon set so that it can deploy a pod in each of the node except the worker node 3. So to apply a taint, kubectl taint node worker node 3, and you can mark it taint as with any of the key value, like for example environment is equal to qa. Okay, so the taint now get applied. You can verify it as well. CTL describe node worker node 3 and then you can grep the keyword tent. So this will give you the information. So tent is already applied into that worker node. So now we have to create a daemon set. Okay, so I already have a manifest file. We created the specification file for the daemon set. You can see it's similar as the deployment. The only thing is that we can change the key, and the kind is the daemon set here. Okay, and all the places are labeled, the name of the pod is the same. It will also have the selector matching labels, so that it will by this basis is identified that we have to create a single pod only, and we don't have the replica because it by default it's have the one replica, so that it can deploy into a single node, a single pod. Okay, so we have already applied the tint. The image we are using Nginx as per the question, and the name of the container is also Nginx. So now I am going to deploy it. Ls. I will copy the name here. Here, apply minus f. I'm not pasting the daemon set. So it will create a daemon set except the worker node 3 because we already applied a tint for the worker node 3 to CTL get ds, the short form of the daemon set. So you can see that it applied created only 2. So desired is now 2 because we have the 3 worker node, but one worker node have the tint applied. So now the desired is 2, current is 2, ready is 2, and available is 2. So let's verify it. Get pod or wide. This gives us the node information also. You can see that the work pod, which is the part of the daemon set, okay, get applied, get deployed into the worker node 1, worker node 2, and not in the worker node 3 as per the question. So this fulfills the
CKA challenge question 13. Generate a file CKA007.txt with details about the available size of all the nodes in a Kubernetes cluster using a custom column format as mentioned below. This question have the weightage of 5%. This question is asking you to create a file named CKA007.txt that contains informations about the available memory and available CPU of all the nodes in a Kubernetes cluster. The information should be presented in a custom column format, which means that you will need to define the format and content of the columns. To complete this task, you will need to gather information about the node in the cluster and extract the available memory and CPU informations for each node. The available memory refers to the amount of the memory that is not currently being used by any processes, while the available CPU refers to the amount of CPU resources that are not currently being used. Once you have gathered the necessary informations, you will need to format it in a way that meets the requirement of the custom column format. This may involve defining specific columns and their contents such as node name, the amount of available memory, and the amount of available CPU. The resulting file should be named as ck007.txt and should contain all the relevant informations in the specific custom column format. This file can then be used to provide insight into the resources uses of the nodes in the Kubernetes cluster, which can be helpful for troubleshooting and optimization purposes. Take on the challenge of solving these questions on your own first. But if you encountered any difficulty in solving it, refer the next video for the solutions. Good luck.
So this is my EKS cluster. So let me execute the query kubectl get node. So you can see that we have only 2 nodes available, and these are the informations we get when we simple write a command kubectl get node. The name, which we are going to provide in this case as well, the status, This is not required. The roles not required, the age and the version is not required. So what is required? We need to provide the allocated available memory and the available CPU. With name, we required only two informations, and we need to write that information into a file. Okay, so we are going to look into the JSON path, that how we are going to build the custom column, okay, using all those informations of the JSON path. So for that, kubectl get node, okay, output of JSON. We are going to see all the details, so it will provide me the informations about all the nodes. Currently we have only two, so I'm going at the top. Here you have some informations like in the metadata. Okay, so in the metadata we will have the name available. Okay, so you can see that we will get the name of the node from this place. Okay, this is fine. And regarding the available memory, okay, so if you scroll a little bit, you will find the allocated memory. This is the capacity that you allocate, okay, and this is the current status. So we will pick the memory part from this place, okay, and the CPU part from this place. So now its scene is clear that we have to use the allocate. This will come under the status. Okay, so we are going to write our query to get all these informations. First we will display it, and then if it is satisfactory, then we will write into a file. Okay, so let's start. kubectl get node output of, we are going to use the custom column. Okay, and the first field is name. So name will be capital as defined in the requirement. So in the browser it will take some time to get rendered. Sometimes it's slow. After that we will write colon, and then we will use the metadata. Okay, metadata, under metadata we have name. We already seen that. Okay, and the second column will be without any space available memory. Okay, and again the column, and this will come from the status. Okay, and locatable, spelling is correct, locatable dot memory. Okay, this is fine. And now the third column will be label CPU. Okay, again column dot, we have to check the command again, dot we are using at each places. Okay, now again the status dot table, okay, dot CPU. Okay, so this is the command we written to get our desired result. Okay, when we click on the enter, if we have to see either the output is coming as per our requirement or not. So you can see that we are able to fetch for both the nodes, and the available memory, whatever the available memory, whatever the available CPU for both the node is coming fine. Okay, so now it's time to write into the file. Okay, so we can write it very easily, CKA 007 dot txt. Okay, so we return it in a file. Let me cat it to just to verify the details, either it's written in a file or not. CKA 00, or just press tab button. So you can see that the whatever the requirement in this particular question, we are able to achieve it. And now we are come back from the cluster and jump into the other questions.
This is the 14th question of this series, having the weightage of 4%. The question says there are various pods running in all the Kubernetes cluster. Write a command into a shell script file which have name pods underscore ASC, which list all the pods sorted by their age in ascending order. As we know, in Kubernetes, a pod is the smallest deployable unit that can be created and managed. It represents a single instance of a running process in a cluster. Pods can contain one or more containers that share the same network namespace and are scheduled on the same node. Kubernetes support multiple namespaces, which provide a way to partition resources and limit visibility and access to those resources. Each namespace can contain its own set of pods, services, and other resources. The question is asking to write a command in the pods underscore asc.sh, which is the shell script file that lists all the pods across all the namespaces sorted by their age in ascending order. We know that the kubectl command tools can be used to interact with the Kubernetes cluster. The kubectl or kubectl get command is used to retrieve informations about resources in a cluster. By default, it retrieves resources from the current namespaces. To retrieve resources from all namespaces, we can use dash dash all dash namespaces or dash capital A flag can be used. To sort the output by the ages of the pod, the dash dash sort dash by flag can be used with the kubectl get command. Take on the challenges of solving these questions by your own first. But if you encountered any difficulty in solving it, please refer the next video for solution. So currently we are using the EKS cluster, and this is the EKS client, and we have two worker node of type t2.small. Okay, and we are currently connected with the EKS client to run all our command. Okay, so we have to first check about the pods, how many pods exist in a particular cluster. kubectl get pod. If we write simple command, it will list all the pod that is running in the default namespaces. But this is not our requirement. Our requirement is to list all the pods that running in the all the namespaces. kubectl get pod, and we will write a flag capital A to list down all the pods. So you can see that this is the namespaces, default namespaces, which have the ages of 61 minutes. This pod comes into existence. After that 60 minutes, 64 minutes. So it lists all the pods. So you can understand that there are three namespaces: default, development, and kube system have the existence of pod, but it's not in a order. You can find that the 60 minutes pod which have the age of 60 minutes is coming in the middle. So it's not in the order, neither in the ascending order nor in the descending order. So how we can find it? So we have to find the created timestamp for that pod. So if we write some command to get it, like kubectl get pod output of JSON, it will give me all the tag that we are going to use it. So we have to go into the top, and then we have to find the particular timestamp. So this is the items. If you go into the metadata, you will find the created timestamps. Under this metadata, for each of the pod, you will find a created timestamps. This will give the informations about the time when this particular pod come into the existence. So we have to use this flag. Okay, so this is clear that we have to use created timestamps. Let me copy it so that we can use it. Okay, under the metadata we have to use it. Okay, so now I have to write a command to list all the pods. So kubectl get pod for all the pods, and we have to apply the command sort by which particular tag under the metadata we have to use the creation timestamp which we copied. Okay, so if we run this, this will bring the pod that created first. So this is the descending order. You can understand it. This is the descending order. But we have to write a command in the ascending order. So we have to just reverse it. Reverse this order. That's it. So for that we have to use a command here, TAC. This will reverse the order of the output. So you can check it that now all the pods that exist in the kube system will go down, and the deployment pod which have the 63 minutes of the ages is coming at the top, and it's currently in the ascending order. We have to write this particular command into a file. Okay, in which file? The pods underscore asc.sh. Okay, so we have to write it. So for writing we have to use the echo command and put all the commands into the double quotes. Okay, and then we are going to write it into the opt slash pods underscore asc.sh. Okay, so if you find this particular commands, it already written down opt pods underscore asc.sh. So commands is there, but we have to execute that command. For that we have to give the permissions. Okay, chmod +x opt and then pods. Okay, now we are going to execute it. Then when this particular file get executed, it will generate the same list of data, all the pods from all the namespaces in the ascending order. Opt pods asch. Okay, so you can see that after giving the execute permissions, it lists down all the pods from all the namespaces in the ascending order. So this completes this particular lab. CKA challenge questions 15. Having the weightage of 5%. Create a new deployment called Web Project 268 with the image Nginx. You have to use the tag 1.16 and one replica. Next, upgrade the deployment to the version 1.17 using the rolling update. Make sure that the version upgrade is recorded in the resource annotations. This question is related to the process of deploying and updating a containerized applications in the Kubernetes cluster. Specifically, it asks you to perform the following tasks. Create a new deployment using the name Web Project 268. The deployment should use the container image Nginx with the tag 1.16 and have only one replica. A deployment is a Kubernetes resource that manages the set of identical pod and ensure that the desired number of replica is always running. Upgrade the deployment to version 1.17 using a rolling update. A rolling update is the deployment strategy that replaces the old replicas with the new one gradually, means one by one, to ensure that the application remains available and responsive throughout the update process. Record the version upgrade in the resource annotations. An annotations is a key value pair that can be attached to the Kubernetes resources to provide additional metadata. In this case, you should add an annotations to the deployment resource to indicate that it has been upgraded to version 1.17. In summary, the questions requires you to create a new deployment, upgrade it to new version, and annotate it to the record upgrade. This types of task is commonly performed by DevOps engineer and Kubernetes administrator to manage the deployment of containerized applications in a scalable and reliable manner. Take on the challenge of solving these questions on your own first, but if you encountered any difficulty in solving it, refer the next video for solution. Best luck!
Okay, now we have to create one deployment. The name of the deployment is Web Project 268. So let's create it. kubectl create deployment. The name of the deployment is Web Project, and the number of the project is 268. Okay, the image that we are going to use, as per the questions, we have to use Nginx, and the tag is 1.16, and it's asking to create a one replica. By default, the one replica will be created if we not define anything, so it's not required. And the strategy for this deployment by default is rolling update, so there is no need to define anything, just create the deployment. Okay, so one deployment is created. kubectl get deployment. So one deployment is created, and it's creating one pod for this. Let's monitor that as well. Pod. So we have one pod currently running. Now we have to set our image. There is two ways we can define, but we have to record the version. We record the version informations as well. So better to create with the imperative way. So let's check the container. What is current deployment is using. kubectl describe the name of the deployment is web. So you can see that the container it's using is Nginx. Okay, so let's clear the screen first. kubectl set image deployment, and the name of the deployment is web project. The number of the project is 268. Okay, and the container name is Nginx. Okay, and we are going to set the image as per the questions. The version is 1.17. And we have to record. This is the very important. So you can see that the image is updated. Let's verify it. kubectl describe deployment. Name of the deployment is web deployment, and graph for the image. So you can see that our image is set with the new one 1.17. Now check the history. kubectl rollout history for the deployment, and the name of the deployment is. So here you can see that we have recorded all the informations, and this is the requirement of the questions, so that it's saying that make sure that the version upgrade is recorded in the resource annotations. So it's already recorded the informations that under the revision number 2 what we did. So which it's clear that we are changing the image. The previous one is we have 1.16 and current is 1.17.
CKA challenge question 16. This question has the weightage of 7%. Create a pod Nginx KATS using image Nginx and init container git k8s with image alpine slash git volume mount path of the main container slash user slash share slash nginx slash html. Nginx index.html needs to be override with shared volume. Index.html file cloned from the below path. This question is asking you to create a Kubernetes pod named Nginx K8s using the Nginx image as the main container and an alpine slash git image as the init container. The main container should be mount a shared volume at the path slash usr slash share slash nginx slash html and the init container should be cloned as index.html file from the specified github repository and override the default index.html file that comes from the nginx image. To complete this task, you will need to create a Kubernetes YAML manifest file that defines the nginx k8s pod including the main container, init container and the volume mount configuration. The main container should use the nginx image and mount a shared volume at the slash user slash share slash nginx slash html path. This will allow the init container to override the default index.html file with the cloned version from the specified GitHub repository. The init container should use the alpine slash git image and clone the index.html file from the specified GitHub repository. The init container should then mount the shared volume and override the default index.html file. After you have created the Kubernetes YAML manifest file, you can use the kubectl command to apply the configurations and create the nginx k8s pod. Once the pod is running, you can verify the index.html file has been overwritten by checking the context of the shared volume mount path in the main container. This task is useful for creating a customized nginx deployment in a Kubernetes cluster and can be extended to include additional customizations and configuration options. Take on the challenge of solving these questions on your own first, but if you encountered any difficulty in solving it, refer the next video for solutions. Good luck.
Okay friends, so we are using the EKS cluster. So you can see that we have the EKS client from where we are passing all the commands, and these are the two nodes. Okay, so let me connect the EKS client. So I am using the AWS console window for the connections as well. And this is the page which we are going to override. So it's placed into the GitHub in the same locations. Okay, and we are going to use it. Okay, so if you go into the k8s nginx, we have the index.html file available. Okay, so if you look into the index.html file, it has some content that we are going to override with the default nginx HTML page. Okay, so EC2 instance get connected. Now we are going to root, just change the root. Okay, we log in with the root user. Okay, so now we are going to create a file, the pod file, which we have the requirement as per the questions. We have two container, one is the main and one is another one is the init container, and we are using the mount to do all the stuff. Okay, so let's do it. We will call it pod.yaml. So here we are going to go into the insert mode, and after that we are going to use the same as we did previously many times for the creation of the pod. So API version will be v1 and kind will be the pod. Okay, P will be the capital. I think you all are familiar with all these things. Metadata. Okay, so here we are going to name our container. Okay, so name will be nginx k8s. Okay, so this will be the name of our pod. Okay, and the main container name will be exactly same. Okay, so and then specifications, we have container. This will contain the main image, main container, you can say containers, and which have the image of Nginx. Okay, and the name will be same as the name of the pod. Okay, port it's not mentioned, but by default we can provide if you want. This is something extra that we are doing. By default it goes with the 80 port only. But it will be good to have a port declarations as well. Okay, now volume mounts. Okay, mount path as mentioned in the question, USR share Nginx HTML. Okay, and the name of the volume it's not mentioned in the question, you can name it accordingly like my data. Okay, now for the init container, init containers, we have the name as mentioned in the question, git kts. Okay, and the image that we are going to use is the alpine for it. And we are going to use some commands in the Kubernetes. It's called args, just to clone it. Okay, so what we are going to use, we are going to use the clone. Okay, using single branch the path will be, I need to copy it. Okay, and let's go into the data. Okay, so this is fine. For the volume mount, for init container, mount path data, as I already mentioned, name will be same. Okay, and for the volumes, name we are using my data empty dir. Let's save it, apply it, ctl, apply -f pod.yaml. So if all goods, then it will create successfully. Let kubectl get pod. So init container will initiate first. So it's currently running. It's deployed all the things into the environment very fast because we have the Nginx available in my system. That's why. So let's go into the container. Okay, qctl execute interactive command with the Nginx KS. Using the browser, sometimes it's slow. When you type, it will render, will take some time. Using the bash. So I'm inside the container, inside the, you can say inside the pod. So now I'm going to the main container. Okay, we are going to cd the path user share nginx html. We are going to ls. We have the index.html page. Let's get it. So you can see that we have the available content. Like, please don't forget to subscribe my channel. This is the same as we have here. So from the remote locations, we bring a file to our local system using the shared volume. We placed it at this particular locations. You can test it by using the curl command also. When you can deploy a pod, testing pod in the any of the node, and then you can ping this particular pod IP. You can test it in this way as well. You can jump into the particular pod for the main container, and then you can browse that particular path for the file location and browse that particular file. You can test in a both way.
CKA challenge question 17. This question have the weightage of 5%. Create a deployment with the below information mentioned in the table using the provider file deployment.yaml at location/root. There are some typo in the file that need to be fixed accordingly and create the deployment successfully in default namespace. All the information is listed below in the table format. Deployment name Nginx deployment, image Nginx latest tag, container port 80, replicas 3. This question is asking you to create a Kubernetes deployment name Nginx deployment using a YAML manifest file located at /root/deployment.yaml. The manifest file contains information about the deployment configurations, but there are some typo that need to be fixed in order for the deployment to be created successfully in the default namespace. To complete this task, you will need to open the provided YAML file and identify any error or typo in the configuration. Specifically, you need to ensure that the Nginx image is specified correctly with the latest tag, the container port is set to 80 and the number of replicas is set to 3. The deployment.yaml file likely include a spec section that defines the desired state of the deployment. These sections may include details about the number of replicas, the container image and command and other configuration options. After you have corrected any typo in the deployment.yaml file and ensure that it matches the requirement listed in the question, you can use kubectl apply command to create the deployment in the default namespace. Once the deployment is created, you can use the kubectl get command to verify the deployment in the running as expected with 3 replicas of Nginx container. This deployment can be useful for deploying and scaling Nginx application in the Kubernetes cluster. Additionally, configuration options can be added to the deployment YAML file to further customize the deployment, such as adding the environment variable, specifying the resource request and limit, and configuration liveness and readiness probes. Take on the challenge of solving these questions on your own first, but if you encounter any difficulty in solving it, refer the next video for solutions. Good luck. Okay, so we are using the EKS cluster for our demonstration, and this is the EKS client. We have the two nodes which have the instance type of M-file large. Okay, and the client is running on the T2 micro. Okay, just want to access the Kubernetes cluster. Okay, so pwd, we are currently in the root directory ls. We have the deployment.yaml file as mentioned in the question. So we have to first look into it. Let me cat it. So here you can find the specifications file that we are going to use. The API version is apps/v1. So I find some typo here as well. Okay, the kind and the deployment. Here also some informations related with the typo. Okay, so let me try to deploy it. You will find it some problem here. kubectl apply -f and then the deployment file. So it's creating the problem, but the details are not provided that what is the problem in the file. But at a first instance, we identified some problem, and the selector name also I see some problem here. Match level is fine, but apps and app both have some problem here. Okay, it should be same. Whatever the label you are using, you have to match it, because it will go into the same replica sets. Okay, whatever the replica we are creating, the replica's name is fine. Cat the file again. Before doing any changes, I'm just want to monitor it, and we have the imperative command to just generate the deployment file. So I'm going to use it. So kubectl create the deployment, and then we will verify it. What is the name of the file of the deployment? It's nginx. Okay, and the name image that we are going to use is nginx, and the tag is the latest one. Okay, then the replica is of 3. The port will be, as per the question, we have to use 80, which is also a default for the nginx. Dry run is equal to client and output of YAML. So it will provide me the description of the specification of the deployment. So we can match it very easily. So here the API version looks good. Okay, the apps, the A should be a small and the V should be a small here. The kind have also problem, it should be a small, and the deployment it should have the capital, the first letter should be capital. The metadata is fine. The name nginx deployment is fine. The specification is fine. The selector replicas spelling is fine, and it is on the same label. Selector, it should be O here, not E. This we have to change it. And the apps, as I already mentioned, it should be same at both the place. So we are going to use both the things as same. And the specifications, the container spelling is also correct, and at the same label. Name is nginx, the image is nginx latest. All are fine. Ports, the ports, the container port, here it is, P should be capital. Okay, so we identified here the 5 problems, and we are going to fix it. Okay, so vi deployment.yaml file, I will go into the insert mode, and here I am going to change the spelling mistake. It should be V should be small, and the A should be small as well. Okay, for the deployment D, it should be capital, and the kind should be small. After that, metadata, we don't see any problem. Selector, definitely here we have to use O here.
selector, match level is fine. We are going to remove the apps. We are going to use the same app Nginx at both the places. Replicas is fine. Template, don't see any problem here. Container spelling is also fine. Containers, name, Nginx, image latest, ports, and here the spelling of port, it should be capital P. All things looks good. Going to save it. So this is the simplest way in case you want to check the typo. You just compare it by generating the deployment specification file by using the imperative command. Okay, so let me catch it again. Deployment.yaml apps, spelling is correct, kind small, D capital, selector spelling already changed, the match labels both are same, replicas 3, template okay, specification containers have the name Nginx and the image we are using correctly, ports container port 80. Okay, it looks good. Now I'm going to apply it. kubectl apply using the file deployment. Okay, so it's created successfully. Let's verify it. kubectl get deployment. Okay, we have the one deployment and it's ready 3 by 3. Let's check it the replica set as well. kubectl get rs. Okay, the desired is and desired, current, and ready. All are 3. Okay, kubectl get pod. Okay, so all the pods are running, so you can see that our deployment is running fine. So in this way we can remove the all the typo error by comparing. So this is trick you can say for the just referring the what is the typo in the file. New session of CKA exam tips. So this is the very demanding topic you can say. I receive lots of requests regarding the tips that I want to provide as per my experience for the CKA exam. So I just summarize all the tips that will be very useful if someone is preparing for the Kubernetes CKA examinations. So this is the first tip, that before going to the exam you need to refer all this the syllabus that from where it's going, the Kubernetes will ask questions, and what are the weightages, what are the percentage, like you can see in the below screens from the storage, the 10% number will be asked in the troubleshooting, that the percentage is high. So you have to do lots of troubleshooting, do lots of practices in every area, but you have to give more focus in which the percentage is very high. So you can find all the informations from the Linux foundations, and this is the exam that currently increased by $75. Now it's 375. When I appeared for this exam at that time, it is we need to provide $300. And the voucher for the examinations, time to time they provide at least 50% of discount coupons is already always available for this particular exam, so you have to refer those vouchers. For this exam you can say that it will ask you around 15 to 18 questions. It's depend upon the question sets. You have 2 hours of time to complete your examinations, and as per the current you can say the version is the minor version is 21, version 1.21. so because the Kubernetes keep on upgrading the version, minor version, so you can say maybe you appear for the if you start preparing right now, then maybe you will appear for the version 1.22, because it's keep on updating the cluster version time to time within a month, or maybe after a month they will keep on rotating that particular version. So there you can say that it's happening very frequently that the minor version got changed.
So this is the first tip you can say, that you have to refer all the syllabus before jumping into the exam. So you have to understand all the things, and you have two attempts within a year. So when you pay a amount for this particular examinations, from that date you have 1 year to appear for two times for this exam. If you fail for the first attempt, you have second attempt as well. But guys, to be very honest, I just want to let you know that try to finish this exam in a single attempt, because if you didn't do appear in the first attempt without any proper in preparations, then the second time it will be very tough for you and you are in the pressure. So try to attempt in a first attempt with full confidence. The second tip is regarding the materials preparations. I received several questions. So you have you can go to the Udemy also, where you can find some good courses on the Kubernetes CKA examinations. I will not mention any name, but from the user enrollment into the cases, from the rating, you can clearly identify which course you have to select for these examinations. And always try to review the Kubernetes documentations. This is the one of the most you can say frequent go-to page you have to consider, that for any help you have to go to the Kubernetes documentations. Not for this exam, even if you are working in the any organizations, this page is going to help you a lot to clear out any confusion or any complexity. And if you have any difficulties, you have the YouTube also, where you have several videos on a particular object, any services that you want to explore more. Any hands-on practice you required, you can refer the YouTube videos as well. So there are lots of material in the market. You can refer several sites also, several help there you can find related with the CKA exam or related with the Kubernetes. So there are lots of stuff. So there is no difficulties in looking for the material. Lots of availability is there. The third tip is regarding the, I always says that I always refer to the Kubernetes documentation. Why I am telling you that? Because one tab is open for you to refer the Kubernetes documentations, because there are several commands, and the candidate don't require to remember all, but the candidate should be familiar with the Kubernetes document. In case of any help required, you can just jump into the that particular page. You have to be very much frequent on that particular thing. So suppose you want to take the backup of the etcd database, you have to scroll at that point where you find your all the informations in case you need required any help. So in the Kubernetes CKA exam, one tab is open for you, that is the Kubernetes documentations. You can't open the two tabs, so you have only one tab is allowed, and proctor is always monitoring your interface, that what currently you are doing. So so you can see that someone is always monitoring you. Every actions is monitored, and it's recorded also, so that they can refer your video before releasing your result. So always try to jump into the Kubernetes documentations in case you required any help during the preparations, so that you are familiar with the pages and how you can search it easily. So you don't have to go into the blog in discussions. Only the Kubernetes IO, the documentation space that provided by the Kubernetes. And the fourth tip is that for this examinations, or to clear these examinations, this is a completely a hands-on, not a MCQ based, like we have the DevOps professional for the AWS or any of the AWS certifications. You have the MCQ there, and this is the cluster based, means the hands-on examination. You have to provide they will provide you the questions regarding go into this particular cluster and do the stuff into this particular node also. They can provide you these types of information. So you have to jump into that cluster, is switching the context, and you have to complete your activity. If you do your activity into the different cluster, then you will receive 0 marks on that questions. Either you completed your stuff completely perfectly fine or not, it doesn't matter. All the things is matter that you have to complete all the work what is asked in the question. If they want something to perform in a particular cluster, you have to switch into that particular cluster and do the stuff there only. So practice, practice, and practice. This is the only mantra, and this will help you in the in your organization as well, because if you clear this exam, then you are familiar with all the environment, and you can able to work in your organizations and try to contribute in your organizations related with the Kubernetes as well. Because in the MCQ, if you question like in the AWS, they don't have the negative marking, so you can blindly select any of the answers, and maybe it will be corrected. So this will not judge so perfectly, because in this exam what the question is asked, this is just like a mathematics exam. If your answer is correct, you tried a very means your the way to perform the activity is correct, your answer is correct, you did it in the right way, then you got the 100 out of 100 marks. So you can consider it as a as a mathematics exam. So try to put your best on it and do lots of practice. This is the only mantra for this. And you should be very, this is the fifth tip, and you should be familiar with the basics command, Linux command, that some of the command I listed here, but you have to refer the documentations, some sites for to just how to create a directory, how to change the directory. Means you can find anything you required it, because you have to remove something, you have to find, you have to use grep command several times. So these all commands which is very basic and is related with the Linux, because the environment you are getting is a Ubuntu and it's Linux based, so you have to be very familiar with all the commands which is the basic command for the Linux. So before jumping into the examinations, try to familiar with some basic commands related with the Linux. And now this is the sixth topic for the editor. They will provide you the Vim editor and the Nano editor, but in case if do not provide you, you can install it. But in the exam they will provide you to be very 100% sure. And some of the Vim editor command, because I love Vim editor, and means I listed some of the commands, and in case you like Nano editor, you can try to figure out or try to search for some command that is used, and do lots of practice either in the Vim or don't select both. I will ask you to just be specific for choosing any particular editor, and you should be have the command on all the commands to execute and do the stuff either in the Vim editor or on the Nano editor. This is the seventh tip regarding the candidate handbook. When you register for the exam, they will provide you, or you have to perform all the activity regarding the system requirements, and when you have to appear for the examinations, what is your time that you selected, and they will do all the scanning related. They will install some browser and you can say the software also, so that they can monitor and you can access the environment, the examinations. So you have to refer the candidate handbook very carefully regarding all the requirements. Your camera is working fine or not, your microphone is working fine or not, your environment in which you are going is not to be so messy. You have to clean all the stuff, because in case during the exam you will feel some challenges that the proctor will ask you to remove this things, that thing. So let's your room very clear, and you will not feel any difficulties during the examinations. This is the eighth tip, and join the exam before 15 minutes. But I will say better to join 20 minutes before the examinations. And this is the PSI interface that you will get to begin your exam. whenever the time matches, or sometimes the proctors delay, and so you have to sit there. But if the proctor is not available after the 1 hour, then you have to talk with the support teams regarding your examinations. They will either cancel you and issue a voucher, or they will just allow you. But in case of AWS, because we have the single attempt for all the examinations, they issue the voucher. But in case of any difficulties that the proctor is not available, they will reschedule, or they will ask you to a reschedule button will be available to reschedule the examinations for the first attempt, and try to clear this exam in a first attempt, so that you don't have to face challenges regarding the pressure in the second attempt. Okay, this is the ninth tip regarding the examinations user interface. So you can see that this is the Chrome tab. This is the first tab. This is for the examinations, and this is the all the interface that is coming in first tab. And the second tab you can open, that is for the Kubernetes IO. You are not allowed to open the third tab either. You want to for this Kubernetes IO, you are not allowed. The only one tab that will be open, and that tab is only for the Kubernetes IO. So this in the second, you can see that you have all the things, that all the control related things that you can find it here, like notepad related thing. If you want to end the exam, you have the actions that is available in the exam admin section here. And this is the terminal, where you have the all the command line prompt. The terminal is available so that you have to perform the activity. The time left, they will provide you the bar, not the digital format of the clock. In my exam also, there is a bar which for the time frame, and for the context, to switch into the any context, you have the clickable link. When you click on the link, you don't have to copy it. It's automatically get copy, and using the shift insert, you can paste it here. Okay, and the right click also, you can do a right click into the terminal also to copy and paste all these things. And the weightage, for every questions there is a weightage, so you can look into the weightage of the questions. So every question has each difficulties level, and as per the difficulties, each question have the assigned weightage, and the question it will be appeared here with the scroll also. Because if if it is a lengthy questions, then definitely there is a scroll, so you have to scroll and read all the questions very carefully. Okay, and regarding the context, regarding the any of the deployment name, service name, there will be a link, and you have to click on that link. You don't need to write it down or just copy and paste. Just click on that and it will be copied. So because you don't you have to do a time management, and that's why they provided you such types of facility, that you don't need to write such a big name for the deployment, and the big name for the secrets, all these things. You can just click on it and it will copy, and you can use it. So timing management is very important for these types of exam. Okay, the 10th tip is the autocomplete and alias. So you can make the alias of the kubectl, because this is the command that you will write very frequently, several times. So you can make it, but I will not prefer. As per my understanding, this is not required, because you have enough time if you did a practice very well, and you have the confidence. So better to not use these types of thing, because while preparations for the exam, you never use alias, right? So if you never used alias at the time of preparations, and you want to create an alias, it will create a confusion during the exam. So why to take the extra pressure? So just avoid these types of things and write all the commands, and it will not create any types of pressure, extra pressure, you can say. So, and autocomplete, I think this is also not required, but I added these things because there is some confusions that what to do, if you want to execute it, these all commands is available in the cheat sheet of the Kubernetes documentation page. You can refer that page and just copy and paste it in the exam. but autocomplete features is will be available. If not available, then you can jump into the Kubernetes cheat sheet. It's a part of Kubernetes IO cheat sheet. You can search with the name cheat sheets, and then in the top you can find these all things. I will show you that where to find this particular command. But for the alias related thing, if you didn't perform this or didn't execute it during the practice, then don't do that, because it will create confusion. Okay, regarding the Kubernetes context, this is the fourth one. I already told you that for each questions, yeah, there is a context in which you have to switch to perform the or solve the questions. So what I suggest you to add for every question before reading the Kubernetes questions, for any question, you need to switch first into the context. If you feel difficulties in resolving that questions, then you can jump into the other question, flag that question first and jump into the other question. But before again reading the questions, switch into the context. This is the very important thing, because what happened, there is lots of pressure in the exam, and candidate will just jump into the and try to solve that question in a previous context. So always do the Kubernetes context switching thing first, then read the question. If you feel difficulties, no problem, flag that question, read before reading the next question, again switch the context. Okay, and in case of any confusion that have you switched or not, no problem, you just switch it again. So this will help you to just avoid the extra confusion during the exam. Okay, time management tip. This is very important. Like I just make a table, and you can see this is the first question. Assume this is the first question, and this is the very difficult one. This is your first question, very difficult one, and you try to understand this question, but due to some lack of that particular topic understanding, and you are not so much familiar on that particular topics, you don't need to put much time on it. Just read that questions till 2 minutes. If you are not able to understand or you are not able to handle that particular question, just flag it and move to the next questions. The next questions will be very easy and it's waiting for you. Okay, so just relax yourself in the exam. At that time in the exam, just think that you have the other attempt as well, the second attempt. So be relaxed. Okay, when you are preparing for the exam, you prepare to complete it in a first attempt. But when you are sitting for the first attempt, just think about that you have one more chance. This will decrease your pressure in the exam. Okay, and in the table you can see that some questions you love to solve it, some questions is laughing, means that the very easy, some question again feel you can feel difficulty, some question is normal, some question is laughing. So you can find that in the 15 question, if you prepared well, one or two questions you will find it very difficult, and if time allow, you flag it. If time allow, you can review that question again, and whatever the time left, you can put that questions to understand, put your time to understand that question. And this is the time management. Don't put 2 minutes or more than 2 minutes for any question to just understand it, because you have only 2 hours to finish all this question. Okay, so time management is very important. Like you can see that some of the questions you really love it and you did lots of practice, and this all have the 4% of the weightages, and some of the questions definitely make you cry, then some of the questions make you laugh also. So do a time management and don't invest much time in a particular question just to read it again and again. And in this way, you will be wasting your time, and you are putting pressure on yourself. Okay, so you have the second attempt also. So just relaxed and do exam in a proper way without any tension. Now the 13th tip is verify your answer. Okay, when you do a stuff for a particular question in a cluster, just verify it. If you created a node or you have some types of services, just try to do a ping on it, or anyway, whatever is the requirement, just need to verify that particular question. If you're not able to verify and you're because time is passing, then just flag it for that question also, and then jump into the other questions. If you feel any difficulties to verify the answer, then jump into the other question, but flag it that question as well, so that if the time allows, you can review it later. The 14th tip is flag the question in case of any confusion. I already mentioned these things since the beginning, that if you have any confusion on any questions, if you feel difficulties in handling it, don't put lots of time on that particular questions. Just flag that questions to review it later. Don't spend much time on it, because you have to manage the time management. And since CKA exam, all the Kubernetes exam, CKAD as well, so you have to do a time management for that exam. Okay, so don't think about any question that, okay, this is the easiest one, why I'm not understanding this, I did lots of, no matter, just flag it and review it later. Okay, the 15th tip is review the flag one if time allows. Definitely. If time allow, then you can review it, but maybe the last or second last question is very easy and waiting for you. So in case of any confusion, you are putting lots of time in the questions that is very difficult for you to understand. It's better to just go and check that questions which is in the second last and last number. Okay, you don't know, because sometimes the question set will ask you the difficult questions at the beginning and all the easiest one at the last or in the middle. So I'm not telling you that the review all the questions one by one. No, go read the questions to take the attempt. First switch the context and then try to understand that, read the question very careful, and then try to solve it. If you feel difficulties, flag it, and then again jump to the second question, switch the context, then read the question. Okay, 16th tip is creating the YAML file. This is also very important at the time you want to review it. Like you are handling the third number of the questions, so name it as 3_pod. If you're creating a pod for the third question, okay, so whatever the YAML file or definition file you are creating, whatever the resources you are creating, just number it. Okay, this is the third number, so whenever you come to review it, you know that this is related with the third questions. Don't just name it as a p.yaml, pod.yaml. It will create a confusion in case of you want to review it. So to be very honest, these types of small tips is very useful in the CK exam. And you also realize when you do a practice, okay, because I'm just providing you all the informations regarding what the difficulties I faced. Okay, I try to list all the tips for you guys. This will be very useful for you to just appear in the exam and try to clear it in one go. Okay, so just rename it with first the question number, 13 question, then write 13. If you are creating the pod, then with underscore or dash, you can write the pod.yaml. Okay, don't write it in a way like a p.yaml, pod.yaml. This will not going to help you in the exam. Okay, 17th tip, use imperative command that in all the videos. Like I have several videos for the Kubernetes also. I added the CK challenge questions in which you can find the CK, all the real-time question you can see. for the CKA examinations, in which I always suggested to use the imperative command, because you are not working for any company. In the company, okay, you can use the definition file, but for this is the exam, you test your knowledge. So use always imperative command. Like this is the command that used to generate a pod, which use the Nginx, and I use the generate it in the YAML file. Again, this is for the third question, the third 3 underscore pod.yaml, because I am creating a pod for number 3 question. So this will help me to, if I want to review it, if time allows in the examinations. Okay, so imperative command is your friend for the exam only. In the working environment also, you can see, you can create a definition file, you can do the changes, you can just move it in the SVN repository. These all things also help in the working environment also, but this is my session for specific for the examination. So try to use imperative command as much as possible. This will help you to save the time. Time management is very important in the CKA examinations. Okay, now this is the 18th number of tip. Don't use bookmarks. It's depend upon the proctor to proctor. Some of the proctor will not allow to use the bookmark, like to just access the content very fast. Some of the examinee do, like create a bookmark for all the things like secret, config map, pods, services, deployment, and whenever they need a question, they need the help for them from the Kubernetes documentations, they close the tab and use the bookmark, or they just click on the bookmark. Don't do such activity. Try to use the search tab of the Kubernetes documentations. Okay, because some of the proctor will just ask you a question during the exam, and you can, maybe you will spend some time on it. Okay, so avoid these types of things. Just create a bookmark for the Kubernetes documentation, open it in your next tab, and do all the searching on that only, instead of clicking for the bookmark for each and every service for the fast access. This all things will not work, and it will put you into the discussion with the proctor. So avoid these types of things. Okay. 19th tip is regarding the JSON path. So you can expect at least one question from this area. So do lots of practice on the JSON path. It's very easy. And you can refer the Kubernetes cheat sheet. Also, there is lots of JSON path related queries, and sometimes they will ask you questions directly, or some changes from the Kubernetes cheat sheet only. So there is lots of tutorials on the YouTube also. So you can refer. This will take only your 30 minutes to understand the JSON. So why to ignore a single question? Why to miss it in the examinations? Might be these questions asked only for the 4% of it, but that single number scoring is important in the examination. So if JSON path is important, then refer some good YouTube video and try to learn it, and do the practice on it. Okay, I also added some question in the CKA challenge playlist for the I created a video, so you can refer that as well. So better to learn it. Okay, the 20th tip is the correct cluster access. Okay, so I already mentioned, and this is the very important thing, that why I have a tip for, especially for this. If in case you have any confusion that either you switched to the correct cluster or not before reading the exam, do it once again. Don't run a command to check either you are in the current cluster or not, correct cluster or not. Just run that, switched into the cluster that asked the questions once again. Why not? This will save you, and this will not create any confusion. This is the very important thing, because if you perform the correct thing in a wrong cluster, you will get 0 marks. So be very careful about the cluster, because you are doing the correct thing in the wrong cluster. So better to switch it or do this activity twice in case of any confusion. Okay, 21st tip is read the question very carefully. This is the main thing, that you have to read the questions 1 times, 2 times before doing or try to solve that questions. Before that, you have to switch. If you feel difficulties, flag that question, jump to the next one, again switch the cluster first. Then read the question. You have to do these types of practice to just avoid any confusion, because you have 2 hours of time and you have to do lots of time managements, and this definitely these types of activities save you lots of time, because sometimes you are working on the question and then you memorized either I switched to the correct cluster or not. So think about that scenario. So in that question situation, you will lost lots of time. You again switch and then again try to execute all the commands. So better to do it first. Do it twice. There is no harm on it. Okay, 22nd tip is don't forget to connect your power adapter after room verification. This is also a short tip, but very important, because more, it's doesn't matter your laptop is new or old, because when you are done with the proctor, like scanning your room, the examinations room, and then proctor asks you to okay resume, just start your exam. At that time, if you forget to connect your laptop with the power adapter, and you lose in case your battery is not properly charged or very old, in that case you will don't have any option for this. You can't resume it and you will are in the difficulties. So whenever you just finished with the proctor, don't forget to connect with your laptop with the power adapter. This is very important, small but very important. Okay, so just remember this tip. Okay, 23rd tip is kubectl expose command. In case of any help required, you can execute the expose command, and you have the Kubernetes documentation tab also open. Okay, so these types of things are also very helpful in the exam, like you search for the Kubernetes documents, and then but if you want some of the small minor things, you can execute the kubectl expose command for deployment for services. If you are just want to memorize it, you don't remember it, or you can refer the Kubernetes cheat sheet also. That will also help. Okay, 24th tip is revise short note. This is also a very important thing. During the examination preparations, just write down all the short notes which you think is very important for the exam also, or for the working in any environment also, and review all those points noted before the exam. Okay, this will help you to review lots of important things, and this in a shorter time, because during the preparations you read lots of articles, lots of reviewed lots of videos. Just try to make a notes and appear in the exam. If you are full confident, try to make it possible in a single attempt. Don't think that you have the second attempt, that you can just going to sit it for the first attempt to see what type of questions they ask. In second attempt you have lots of pressure, because this is not a very cheap exam. You have to spend lots of money for this. So this all are my tips for this examination as per my understanding, and there may be more, but these all tips are, you can say,
fulfill. Means you can say if you remember all these tips and try to utilize it, you don't require any tips for this. Just follow whatever I provided you, and best of luck for the examinations. And if you like my video, don't forget to subscribe my channels. Okay, one more things I want to mention here for the Kubernetes cheat sheet. Okay, so this is the very important area, and before the examinations you have to refer this cheat sheet, because this cheat sheet have several, you can say, commands. You can see that all the Kubernetes context and configurations, you have the commands here, and try to execute every commands so that you are familiar with every commands, and they will definitely, you can see the 40% questions is coming from this cheat sheet. So just use this Kubernetes IO as much as you can, because this is the only friend. One friend is the practice, practice, and practice, and the other friend is the Kubernetes IO. You can find all the very important thing, like for the JSON path, you can say all the useful command is here, that how to use it. Okay, so refer this cheat sheet page very nicely before the examinations. Okay,